Hello, my name is Tracy, and this is my podcast, Step Inside My Mind, or since this seems to be a reality expressed in acronyms, SIMM, S-I-M-M. I want this podcast and any comments from fans or anyone simply passing through to be a safe space for survivors and whips. That's works in progress to you. I also want it to be as inclusive as possible. So keeping that in mind, ladles, giraffes, bathtubs, tangerines plus, and all hummingbirds within earshot of my voice, just in case no one told you today, fuck the storm. You are the storm. Hello, avid listener. I use the singular because while I have a little over 50 downloads of my first 4 episodes, I only have 1 review. Thank you, LaShawn. None of my friends and family, aside from my very supportive son, have given me feedback. Don't get me wrong. I'm so grateful for my son's support and the 50 plus downloads. I'm also fascinated by the fact that some of these downloads are from countries like Belgium, Croatia, and Wales. It really never occurred to me that I'd have international listeners. Yes, it's only been a month, but some indication that what I'm saying is or isn't interesting, at the very least, would be so helpful. Am I unapproachable? The answer to that, I'm guessing, is yes. And I really can't blame you. I'm only learning about who I am and why it's important to give myself unconditional love first and foremost within the last 10 years. I recently joined a Facebook group for introverts. I wanted to know if they had any friends who remained friends with them in spite of their innate inability to be in contact with them on a regular basis. The overwhelming consensus was yes, they did, because their friends knew how they were and accepted them regardless. That then made me realize that I didn't have as many real friends as I thought I did. I knew that on some level, but for it to be confirmed was simultaneously jarring and freeing. Jarring because I didn't like learning that I was being tolerated by everyone and not just a former coworker. And freeing because it meant I no longer needed to make myself feel guilty for not staying in touch with them more often. I replay that scene of the aforementioned coworker telling me at a company-wide event in front of several other coworkers that he tolerated me. I would have preferred it if he had told me that he hated me. It may sound strange, but for some reason that's easier to take than being tolerated. Tolerating someone is like being a mean, shifty liar, smiling in someone's face while presumably talking mad shit about them to others. So if I'm being tolerated and friends aren't really friends but acquaintances, it follows that I've not ever been in romantic love. and no one has actually been in love with me. I'm not Charlotte Vale. I don't have a cat and a canary, but I live in an approximation of single blessedness. As I said, I'm an introvert and I need and enjoy my alone time. My living arrangements are not always conducive to this need, but I make do with what I have of it. On that note, if you hear background noise, it's because someone's watching television in another room and I think they've fallen asleep without adjusting the volume. Anywho, there are those moments, I confess, when I despair of being alone forever. Moments, I say, but since I live my life living in each moment, those moments can drag on for almost an eternity. Being a few years past my half century on this rock, I've resigned myself to some things. While I like my alone time, being alone for the rest of my second half a century isn't one of them. I thought I was good with that. I really did. I thought I had actually resigned myself to that. I've only recently realized that it actually didn't really sit well with me. Last night, as a matter of fact. I had finished binging what I hope is the first of a few more seasons of Queen Charlotte. I'm no royalist, but the idea of a quote-unquote great experiment being forced on the British monarchy because their king is mentally unhealthy and they have to look for his queen as far away from Britain as possible was an interesting take, especially at this time in history, and it was fascinating. I know it's extremely loosely based on the lives of George III and Queen Charlotte. While we can't be certain that theirs was a love match as well as a political one, many historians believe and agree that they did love each other and that King George III was a devoted father and husband. I was a blubbering mess by the end of the season, with the Bridgerton-era Charlotte and a lucid Farmer George under their bed remembering each other when they were younger versions of themselves and began being a team. I would have liked to know what that was like, having my weirdo look at me, their weirdo, like that. To feel as though who we were to each other gave us the strength to face the world together. Part of it was the ending of a good show, all that blubbering. Much of it was because it occurred to me, circling back to my point, that I hadn't ever really been in romantic love. I didn't know and couldn't identify with what happens when one is in love romantically with another. I think I said this in a previous episode, but just in case this is your first episode, welcome. But I spent most of the first half of my century believing that sex was love. This is what my abuser groomed me to believe. If they're not interested in touching you, Tracy, they don't truly love you. Yes, he actually said that to me, and yes, I remember. That, coupled with the fact that I didn't start loving me until very recently, that's how I know I've never been in romantic love. I don't even know what it is to live a quote-unquote normal life. You know, the normal life that I hear and read about that includes going to the prom, being a child and not a guardian, growing up without carnal knowledge, having friends and family throw me a birthday party, physical demonstrations of love, you know, the normal life of hearing one's parents say how proud they are. The normal life where at least one parent is in the audience or the stands cheering you on or recording your proudest moments. The normal life that includes family who has one's back. The normal life that includes what should be one's first experience with unconditional love. This isn't a lament. It's more of me stating a matter of fact. Maybe if I'd not had to heal from trauma at all, I could have experienced a less anxious, stressful, suspicious, and depressing life. I want to know what it's like to feel at ease among family and friends, being yourself, and not trying to guess their ulterior motives for saying and doing what they say and do. I've wasted so much time trying to be anything other than what I was. Not that I knew what that was. And now that I've begun my baby steps on my healing journey, I can see what I've missed, and it's pissing me off. Yeah, I know. Woulda, coulda, shoulda is no way to survive a life, let alone live it or thrive in it. And believe you me, I don't like sharing my problems with others. I don't like doing this because it sounds too much like complaining and whining. That's kind of why I live in my head. It's because I feel like only I know why I say these things, and it's not really coming from a place of woe is me, but why is it? I just wish I was able to experience the normalcy that I presume comes with having lived a life without knowledge I was too young to make sense of. What is it like to have a close relationship with one's parents? To be able to go to one's parents with any and everything without fearing judgment? What is it like to be reprimanded or grounded instead of being beaten by a belt within an inch of one's life while lying naked on a bed by the same person who sexually abuses you? I'm not looking for sympathy or pity. I'm simply setting these thoughts free from the prison that is my mind, placing them into the light of day so that I can attempt to make sense of them instead of them being some kind of vicious loop going around in my head. That's also where getting some feedback would be helpful and very much appreciated. But I'd need more friends for that. And, well, we've already covered that. I don't know, avid listener, whether this podcast is making a dent in my healing journey or my world. I know I need to be more patient. It's just that, to quote Sherman Edwards, composer and lyricist of the Broadway musical 1776, is anybody there? Does anybody care? Does anybody see what I see? It's been real, guys. It's been rough, and I'm exhausted. Peace, love, and hair grease.
People doing things they hate just to fit in. I know it's easier to get along peacefully, but have you ever thought about you? Don't know why I keep on doing what I'm told to do when the rules are made.
Thank you for listening. I hope our time spent inside my mind was, at the very least, amusing. At the most, positive-ish, and conducive to whatever you were in search of when you chose to listen. Thank you, from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, for joining me on my journey. If you're new to this space, welcome. Pay it forward, lift, and place someone else on their path to their best selves. Be kind, be generous, make a dent, and get into as much good trouble as possible. Do you, be you. Doobie doobie doo.
I know it's hard sometimes to believe it, that you deserve more than me, he said. Hope with the job you hate and love the ones you love. 'Cause have you ever really thought about you? Don't know why I keep on doing what I'm told to do when the rules are made up by someone we never knew. Baby, wipe your tears and hear me feel alright.